Coming in our number 22 spot, we have Chewbacca. Most people who play this game would agree he's definitely in the bottom 2 on this list. The reasons are, he's very slow. It's very hard for him to escape from heroes, because his stun doesn't even last for that long. His bowcaster barely does any damage, even with Furious Bowcaster activated. It still really doesn't do too much. I feel like this Furious Bowcaster should be the amount of damage his regular blaster does. Yeah, like I said, his stun is really bad. His rolls don't really get you anywhere. He's slow. His ground slam is pretty much useless in Heroes vs. Villains. It actually serves some purpose in like large scale modes, but he's very slow, so he's also not that good in large scales modes. That's why no one uses him in Supremacy. Because it's just very hard for him to get out of the, like, if he gets overwhelmed with too many enemies, it's very hard for him to escape. And he's just all around not the best. His health is pretty good, but other than that, he's really bad. Next up we have BB9E. One of the only really good qualities of BB9E is that he's fast and he can get away quickly. His regular attack, like shock, I don't know what to call it, shock prod, doesn't do nearly as much damage. You can see in this gameplay, I'm like getting tons of hits on this Leia. She's getting like none on me, and yet she still manages to kill me just from getting a few hits in after I get a load more than she does. His shock spin is really good in large scale modes, but in hero modes it's pretty decent. His charge up is pretty much useless. I never really find it helps like at all. And his smoke cloud, it doesn't really do much. It could just shoot into the smoke and most of the time could still hit you. His health is not really good at all, and the only really good thing about him, like I said, is that he's fast. And I also like how he stuns people, but it just isn't enough damage. Next up on the list, we have Captain Phasma. Don't get me wrong, Captain Phasma isn't nearly as bad as these other two heroes below her. She's actually really good. Starting now is when we actually start to get into, like, the alright heroes. It feels mean putting Phasma this low, because I absolutely love her, and her droid could be extremely helpful in some maps, but in other maps, she's just not the best. It really depends on the map. Closed maps, like closed maps that also have a little bit of open areas where she could shoot, is where Phasma really shines, but in two closed areas, she could just get spammed from lightsabers, and in two open areas, she could just get shot from everywhere. So, in some maps, she could be a top 10 in my opinion, and other maps, she could be, like, probably one of the worst in the whole game. That's why I decided to settle on Phasma on this position on the list. She's really good in some situations, but in others, she's just not the best. Her staff strikes don't really help at all. I would only recommend using it if you're running into a blocking lightsaber person who's really low, or if you need to reload. Her survivor is really good. This extra health is always useful, and her droid is extremely useful, probably her best ability. But with that being said, let's move on to the next spot on our list. Next up, we actually have Iden Versio. It was really hard to choose between Iden Versio and the next hero on this list to be put at this position, but in the end, I inevitably decided on Iden Versio. She could be really helpful in technically not Supremacy, because Supremacy is not out yet in the OT, but in Galactic Assault, her secondary fire absolutely melts heroes and infantry. Her pulse cannon can melt infantry too, and it's really helpful on maps like Crate. Her stun is really useful if she's getting overwhelmed. Same with her shield. However, her shield kind of does suck in Heroes vs. Villains, because as you can see from the gameplay, lightsabers could go right through it, which I think that should not be a thing. Lightsabers should not be able to hit through the shield. And her pulse cannon does little to nothing against heroes and heroes versus villains. It's pretty much not even worth using in heroes versus villains. Her health is not really that great, but her blaster can shred. Same with her secondary fire. And that's what makes her so good of a hero. Yeah. So with that being said, let's get on to the next spot on this list. Next up is BB-8. Now, BB-8 is really good in Galactic Assault and Supremacy. In Heroes vs. Villains, though, he is kind of lacking. He can get shredded easily by lightsabers and blasters, but as long as he could get close up, he could usually get pretty much good damage in. But yeah, like I said, he really shines in Supremacy and Galactic Assault. His resistance breaking is really good for if you get low. The enemy will take damage if they shoot you from the right star cards. The cable spin is really helpful for taking out a log group. And the charge is really good if you're facing off against an enemy hero and you want them to get away from you. Like BB-9E, he is extremely fast, but his health is not the greatest. However, his abilities are way better than BB-9E's, which puts him higher on the list. Next up on the list is Boba Fett. Now, Boba Fett is by far the best character in the whole game at getting away. He could be really good and annoying in Heroes vs. Villains because it's really hard to take him out as a lightsaber character. However, in Supremacy and Galactic Assault, there's tons of blaster characters, so it's really easy to gun him out of the air. That's why Boba Fett is not as high on this list as if it was just Heroes vs. Villains. And the fact that he can't zoom in also really doesn't help him that much, because he has to kind of go close to people to be able to hit them since he can't zoom in. His concussion rocket is not the best, but it did get buffed, so it's not that bad anymore. And his his regular missiles, whatever, they are really good, especially in Supremacy and Galactic Assault. But his health is really not good at all, which really drops him on this list, and the fact that he can't zoom in also does not help him either. Next up is Leia. Now, if this list was made a couple of weeks ago, Leia would be a lot higher on the list. I mean, a lot lower on the list than she is now. She would probably be either a little bit above Chewie or below Chewie. One of those spots. Her thermal detonators are amazing, especially in Supremacy and Galactic Assault. Her secondary fire is not as good as Iden's, although it's still there. Her blaster is pretty good. Same with her other blaster. That blaster is just melts heroes. Melts them quickly. And it also melts infantry too. However, the reason that she's not as high as some other heroes on this list is because her squad shield, yeah, it's good in Galactic Assault. It's still not very good in Heroes vs. Villains. Although it heals you very slowly, that it doesn't really help too much or at all. And she still can't shoot out of her squad shield, so it's still not very useful. Her health is pretty average, and yeah, Leia is just, an average hero. Next up on the list is Finn. Now, Finn is probably one of the least used heroes in the whole game, which really makes me sad because Finn is actually really, really good. Like Leia, he is pretty average. I know I just said he was pretty good, but by himself, he's not the best, but when he's with a team, he could absolutely shred people. The buffs that he gives to his team are just amazing. His Deadeye is extremely good, one of the best abilities in the game. His big deal is really good, but his undercover team isn't really that good. He's really good when he's with a team, but by himself, he's not the best. Coming in at our number 14 spot, we have Lando Calrissian. Lando is really good, especially if you equip the star card that gives him 800 health. His sharp shot is really very good. His disabler is probably the best stun grenade in the game. And his smoke cloud is not really that great, but his other attributes definitely make up for that fact. His thermal is very good for seeing people from who like are trying to hide, so it's easy to get kills with it. Basically, the Lando is really good. The only thing that holds him back is his smoke cloud. If it were to get buffed or changed, he'll probably be like definitely in the top 10. Next up on this list, we actually have Obi-Wan Kenobi. As much as it pains me to put him here, because he is my favorite character of all time, I just have to put him here. And here's his villains. He's pretty good because of he could block for days. And, however, his defensive rush barely does anything in those game modes. His all-out push is pretty good. And his mind trick is not really that great, but not as bad as his defensive rush. And in trooper-based game modes, his defensive rush is amazing, especially if you equip the star cards that allow him to one-shot most infantry. His all-out push is still good. His blocking stamina is still good. And his mind trick is alright. So he's a very average hero in terms of, like, strengths and weaknesses. Yeah, he's got a lot of strengths, and he's also got a lot of weaknesses, which makes him pretty average, so that's why Obi-Wan Kenobi is on this spot on the list. Next up on the list, we actually have Bossk. Bossk is way better in Galactic Assault and Supremacy than he is in the hero-based game modes. That's just how it is, because his grenades do way more damage to infantry, so he can one-shot them. And his blaster, if it's charged up, can one-shot them in the head. His smoke cloud and pretty much all of his abilities are great. There's not really any ability that's bad. The only thing that holds him back from being the best blaster character in the game is that his blaster sucks. He actually does. He relies so much on his abilities. It's kind of crazy. He might be the hero that relies on his abilities the most. And another good thing about him is that he can actually regenerate to full health, although it does take longer. That's why I like to choose him in Supremacy, because he could actually regenerate back to full health, which is very useful. However, I don't use him that much in hero-based game modes because his blaster just tickles the heroes in those game modes, even when it's fully charged up. So that's why Bossk is on this position on the list. Next up, we have the man, the myth, the legend, the Dark Lord of the Sith, Count Dooku. Now, Dooku is probably tied with Vader for being the best character in the game in a 1v1 with a lightsaber character, because his duelist combined with his exposed weakness can absolutely melt heroes. His stamina is decent, and he does have 3 dodges, but I think you need a star card for that. His abilities aren't the best against troopers, that's what holds him back a little bit. But here's his villains he can melt, so that's why he's taken this spot on the list. Next up is General Clanker himself, Grievous. Grievous, like Dooku, is really good in hero-based game modes. However, they both are lacking in trooper-based game modes. And that is because, one, Dooku's abilities aren't really good at all against troopers, or they aren't really that useful. They're mostly good for taking on heroes, but Grievous is not that good in trooper-based game modes for different reasons. He can only block 5 blaster bolts before he's out of defensive stamina. That's, like, really bad. It's the worst in the game. However, his abilities are really good against troopers, so that's why he is slightly taking the edge over Dooku. He might be a tad bit better in trooper-based game modes, and he might be a tad bit worse in hero game modes, so that's why he's taken this spot on the list, right in front of Dooku. And now on to the Mary Sue, Rey. Rey is, I would say she's better in trooper-based game modes, simply because her insight doesn't really do much in hero-based game modes, since you almost always already know where the enemies are. And in trooper-based game modes, it's a lot better, so you can see if someone's like sneaking up on you or something. Her mind trick is very useful in both game modes. Same with her dash strike. And she's got 3 dodges. It might be with the star card again, but I'm not really sure. She does have really long lightsaber reach. I think she has the longest lightsaber reach in the game, meaning she could hit people the furthest away from anyone else with the lightsaber. I think that's true, but it might be false. But anyways, Rey is pretty balanced, so nothing really too good about her. Nothing really too bad. But yeah, that's why she's taken this spot on the list. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me for putting Han this high on the list, but he could confidently take out any lightsaber character in the game in a 1v1. With his detonite charge and his shoulder rush, he could easily take out a lightsaber character. Easily. And he's got tons of range. His blaster is pretty good. His sharp shot ability isn't the greatest, but it's not really that bad either. If they were to buff it, he would definitely probably be in the top 5. But yeah, this is why I think Han is the best character and the best blaster character in the game, simply because his detonite charge is amazing. His shoulder rush is also pretty good as well, and he's got a good amount of dodges. So yeah, Han's just pretty good. That's all I gotta say about him. But also, before I go on to the next person, does anyone else, please tell me in the comments, anyone else find it weird how in the movies Han's super tall, but in this, and Leia's super short, but in Battlefront 2, Han is literally shorter than Leia? Like, I don't understand. He should be probably like one of the tallest characters on the light side, but he's like one of the shortest. That just makes no sense to me. Well, on to the next character. And now we have Maul. Maul is really, really fast, and he's good at getting away with, his speed and his dashes. I don't really... spin attacks, yeah, that's what they're called. I just saw from the gameplay. His chokehold is amazing. It really works well if you could choke them, pin them against the wall, and then throw your lightsaber in. It works really well. His health is on the lower side for lightsaber characters. It's really not the greatest amount of health, but his speed definitely makes up for that fact. And his abilities, none of them are really bad, although his spin attacks can sometimes be a little glitchy and not work how they're supposed to. He's really pretty well-rounded. His weakness is definitely his health, but his speed and abilities more than make up for that, and that's why he's on the spot on this list. And now it is the Grand Master himself, Yoda. Yoda is pretty balanced in this game. Like Maul, he's pretty fast and he's hopping around and stuff. And he does have 700 health, but his abilities and his other factors make up for that. His size is also really good because it's hard to see him. So the only reason I think that he's better than Maul is because 1, his size, 2, his defensive stamina is a lot higher than Maul's. It's actually tied with ObiWan's with blaster bolts, not with lightsaber blocks. ObiWan has the most, but with blaster bolts they are tied. So that's pretty handy. Except ObiWan's I think is better because he actually deflects the bullets back at the enemies, and Yoda just absorbs them. However, Yoda is basically Maul, but smaller, which makes him better, I guess. So yeah, that's Yoda. And kicking off our top 10, our top 5, we actually have Luke Skywalker. A lot of people would put him at number 3 spot. I would personally put him at number 5, simply because I feel like he could get destroyed pretty quickly, and I feel like his abilities aren't as good as the other two people who are in front of him, which a lot of times people would actually put behind him. That's just me. Personally, I think that Luke is a little bit worse than Kylo and Palpatine. I'm just gonna say that. So that's why I'm putting him behind them, because I feel like Kylo's basically Luke, but slower, and abilities are just better. So that's why I'm putting them above Luke. Coming in at our number 4 spot, we have Emperor Palpatine. Palpatine is like a mix between a lightsaber character and a blaster character, and I think that mix works perfectly. All of his abilities are really good. His lightning shreds lightsaber blocks, and it could easily take out infantry. And he's very good at hopping around. His jump is really high. His dashes send him really far. And the only necessarily bad thing I could say about him is he only has 700 health, which is not even that bad considering he's not really a lightsaber character or a blaster character. He's kind of like his own thing. So, like, that could be like the average for him. I don't even really know. There's not really anything bad I could say about Palpatine. Maybe that, like, his lightning runs out a little too quickly if you start spamming it. But then, like, just don't spam it. If you're wise with him, you could just move around quickly and kill everyone in sight. The only really time you're going to face any issue is if the lightsaber character is right up close to you, or you get overwhelmed by a million different blaster characters. But other than that, Palpatine is a goat, and he's really, really good. Now on to our top 3, we have Kylo Ren. Kylo is basically a slower version of Luke with a slower swing speed, but his abilities are way better. That's pretty much all that needs to be said. And no, I'm not just doing it because I'm about to run out of gameplay for Kylo Ren. That's totally not the reason I'm ending it here. Just letting you know that, yeah, that's what he is. Yep. And now, taking the runner-up position on this list, we have Darth Vader at number 2. What's funny is I was originally going to have him at number 2 spot, and then I was originally going to have him at the number 1 spot, and I was like, okay, if you look at, like, Vader's really good at both Supremacy and Heroes vs. Villains. I mean, not Supremacy, Galactic Assault and Heroes vs. Villains. So, like, and Anakin is only really good in Supremacy and Galactic Assault, not really Heroes vs. Villains, because his abilities aren't that really good against lightsaber characters. And then I was like, if you look at it as a whole, Darth Vader is better than Anakin because he's really good in 2 game modes, while Anakin is only really good in 1. But then I played as Anakin to get gameplay for this video, not the gameplay that you're gonna see most likely. But I started to realize Anakin's actually really good in Heroes vs. Villains. I was wrong because Anakin's got the ability combo, obviously. So yeah, that's why Darth Vader is not our number 1 spot, and Anakin is our number 1 spot. Darth Vader is still really good. The choke lightsaber combo can melt people, although Anakin's combo could do just a little bit more damage, I think. His focus rage is amazing. He could get over 1,000 health, which is really, really OP. The only thing that really only holds him back is he's slow. That's pretty much the only bad thing about Vader. Everything else is amazing. His health, his abilities, his damage, everything is amazing about him. His blocking stamina is also really good. He could block as many blaster bolts as Obi-Wan Kenobi, which is really freaking crazy. He should not be this OP, but there is just one more person who's just a little more OP than Vader, and I'm pretty sure you guys all know who he is. And coming in at our number 1 spot, taking the crown, we have Anakin Skywalker. Anakin Skywalker has always been OP, and the reason he's OP is because he's just fucking OP. Thanks for watching this video, everyone. See y'all in the next one. Peace out.
walking out of our next contest alive are the maintenance droids cleaning it all up. Cue the very sad music.
No, but in all seriousness, Anakin is OP because of his fucking ability combo. Like, and here's his villains. Let's say you're Kylo Ren, because I see a Kylo Ren on the screen right now. You're at 750 health. Anakin could pull you in, right? Then he could do his heroic might, knock you down again, then hit you a couple times with his saber. Then you finally get up and you start blocking his attacks. But nope, he's got his freaking what's it called? The passionate strike, which goes through your block, and you're just dead. And that's not even with retribution. Anakin also, as if with the right star cards, can get 900 health. That's broken as hell. That's pretty much as Vader without focused rage. That's crazy. And he's pretty fast. He does the most damage out of everyone in the game with the lightsaber. From the front or from the back, I can't remember which one, but he does the most damage from a specific side. And Dooku does the most damage from the other side, I think. But it makes sense that Dooku would, because he's a duelist. Most of his abilities just make his lightsaber attack stronger. And Anakin's abilities are just crazy OP. They could, like, pretty much all of them can one-hit kill infantry. Yeah, it could, like, if you're in a full room with 20 infantry, just heroically might your way out, and they're all gonna be dead. Anakin is broken. Fix him, please. Fix him! Fix him! Fix him! Fix him! Nerf him! Nerf him to